Hello, everyone. Today is December 20th, 2025. And as the year comes to a close, Desiree and I have been speaking. You'll know from many of our videos, Desiree Holmes Sharini. She has a lot of great input to add. But what we've noticed is there's certain patterns that are starting to emerge. And we wanted to talk today a little bit about the programming and how some people are just on autopilot. And it's like they can't think and use discernment. And it's not about judgment. It's about learning to catch yourself because there's so much deception that's happening right now. And when we start to catch ourselves, and even if we just say, I'm not sure about that, it's not even that you have to disprove or disavow whatever is being said, but even just not being sure, you're breaking up the energy pattern. So we wanted to talk a bit about that. So how are you doing, Desiree?
I am doing great. Thank you. I can't believe the date, you know,
I know how fast it's going by.
already, holidays and the end of the year. Um, Other than that, going through a time wormhole too quickly here, I am doing great.
Yes, right on. And that's a great way of putting it, a wormhole, because things are moving so fast. So I'm not sure if this is the quickening that we're experiencing, but I just can't believe, like, it just seemed like a few months ago it was August. And then now it's year end. Like, it's just
Absolutely.
wild, right? So that's just kind of interesting. So we're going to talk about programming and conditioning is the topic that we decided to take on today. And so I've been listening to a few different podcasts in the last week or so, and what a lot of them are saying, and Desiree and I have both said this before, how important it is to align with the truth. When you have to endorse people over process, you're not aligned with truth. You're basically just part of the matrix. And that was just one of the things that we noticed. What would it take to be true to yourself and say, I deserve to know the truth? I'll
Yeah.
make up my own mind. What if you change your mind? You know, it's kind of funny. A few people have said this to me. Even my friend yesterday said this. She goes, when I first heard about Trump, she goes, I didn't like him. I hated him. And then as she started to wake up and realize what was really going on, she's a fan of his like crazy now. But she knows she still has friends who are not a fan of his. She doesn't care, right? She just
Yeah.
decides she's going to have a 3D conversation with them. And the example was, so when he was doing The Apprentice, I would hear him say, "You're fired." And I thought, what a jerk. But I never watched any of the shows. But
Okay.
the media would just be saying he's a jerk. So one day, as I'm hearing everybody tell me he's a jerk, I know what it means to be gaslit. So what I did was I punched it into the search engine and I said, what is Trump doing right? And I looked down the side. So this was, I think, on YouTube that it showed up. And I looked down the side of all the videos. There was probably 13 different videos of what he's doing right. By the time I got to the second or third one, it was flipped into everything he was doing wrong. So I
Yeah.
realized they were manipulating my computer. I know I've talked about this before, but how important that is. The other thing I was going to ask you, what are your views on, I'm not sure if you want to touch this one or not, but pathological liars in politics? Like, I'm watching them lie with impunity, deny with impunity. It's almost like they've
You
been
know,
trained.
Speaking of videos, that are out there, I've seen, coming across Instagram, there are many that, have certain politicians, say Obama or Biden is a really good one that to exhibit this, where, over the years in the past, they've said one thing, and then, current day, they're saying the opposite. And, saying this is what, that when you're talking about gaslighting,
Yes.
this is where it's like, woo, individual relationships when somebody's like that, or seeing this and being told, um, you know, this is what I believe. You're like, wait a minute, didn't 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you insisted this, and now you insist this? Certainly people can change their mind, but this is beyond changing their mind. This is going with the narrative. Like you say, we don't even know who they are. We don't even know what true to themselves is. They're true to a party and a narrative.
Right.
And it's unhealthy, mentally unhealthy, I think, for them and for their, constituents. And so that's what you're talking about here, is that many people simply don't think for themselves, don't have independent thinking. They give themselves over, like we say here, the topic, to the program.
Right.
They just give themselves up. They subject themselves and surrender to whatever the narrative and the program is. and have no independent analysis or thinking to what they're believing, doing, and saying.
Now, do you think that they know intentionally that they're lying?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so too. So the what's the saying? The end justifies the means to them.
Absolutely. With certain groups of people, that it doesn't, lie, cheat, steal, murder, as long as you get your way. So there is, I believe, a lack of moral um, guidance in the choices that a lot of people make in their lives when it comes down to, you know, getting their way, what they want, and achieving the ends.
So it's interesting that you call it the moral guidance, because even good people do this. I've seen good people turn around and say, this person's been my friend for so long, I'm going to back them. But even what they did was wrong and they were lying. But they chose that person because they were their good friend for so long. But then they discredit the other person who's also doing good things for that person. Like there's
Yeah,
a lot of games getting played right now.
yeah,
And
and
I'm hoping it's going to come out. That's what
mhm.
I'm really hoping is going to happen, right? So we know right now the narrative is really dark that we're hearing. There's good things that are happening. There's dark things that are happening. So what's happening in Canada? I'm under the impression that what they want to do in Canada, they want to stain and create chaos because we're your northern border and most of our population is in the south end of our border. So they
Okay.
are really starting to mess with the people. And so you probably heard that they killed the ostriches, like 300 ostriches.
Yeah, I saw that story. I didn't really follow it, but they were trying to save. And what, it's been a year or more that they've
Yeah,
been fighting to save the ostriches. So by the time the government finally gets the okay to go kill them, it's like, what danger could there possibly be?
I
There
know.
was one or two sick birds, and then they're like, kill all the ostriches.
I
You
think there
know?
was more than two sick birds. I think it was 60 something, but they figured they had natural immunity within the eggs. So what had
Okay.
happened was the government did not want natural immunity for COVID.
Oh,
So that's what it was about. So they had the kill pen up
okay, yeah,
even before
yeah.
the Supreme Court came out and said, no, you're culling the ostriches. So they had it all set up, right?
Hmm.
So then they figured there's probably 60 to 80 ostriches missing. I wouldn't be surprised if the government didn't take them and put them on their own farm to study the antibodies. Like you just get
Hmm.
to the point once you get lied to enough times, you start looking for different, like
If I
different
if I were the
explanations.
owners, if I were the owners, I probably would have taken some of the ostriches and hid them away on someone else's farm.
You can't. So what happened? The neighbor that backed onto their property, the police,
Hmm.
RCMP took over their property as well, created their own road, destroyed the
What?
garlic crop. So they basically quarantined and wouldn't let them come onto their own property. This is the neighbors.
Wow.
So Canada is quite the viper den, if you want to call it that. So that's what's happening right now. So what's happening? Mark Carney wants a majority government. So he's the prime minister right now. So he was the head of the Bank of England. And I think at one point he was the head of the Bank of Canada. He was Justin Trudeau's advisor for the last 4 years. So what he's doing is bribing different MPs to cross the floor, and that's how he's getting his majority government so he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
The one doing it, Michael Ma, I think his name is. I think he's from Toronto. They figured they already know he's had meetings with China. So you just sit there and watch the manipulations. What do you do to get out? I don't know what the answer is. Like you don't know, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
this is what's going on. So we really have a negative dark agenda right now. So the other one I wanted to talk a bit about was what's your opinion about AI? Are you following any of the narratives on that?
Uh, it just like AI, as it keeps changing, this, following any story of it keeps changing. So no, I am probably 2 years behind at least.
So the only reason I'm asking that, what I will do, it doesn't matter if I'm watching a dog video, a horse video, not that I don't have better things to do, but sometimes I'll be listening to a podcast and then I just go into Facebook and go through the reels. But what I found was I would start muscle testing myself.
Oh, smart.
So because our body, so what the muscle testing is using our conscious mind to
Hmm.
access our subconscious information because our body knows. So as long as you
Right.
know how to read your own energy, I will say, is this AI? is this real?
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter. Your answers are yes, no, and I'm not sure. I might not know right now. Those are the three answers that you would normally get. So if I wasn't sure what my answer was, I wouldn't repost that video until I got more of a confirmation or somebody else could back it up that that did happen, that conversation happened. What they're saying they can do with AI now, they can, let's say they want to make it look like you went in and robbed a bank.
Oh, everything. Yeah.
I,
I just
I can give worse examples.
I just the other night decided, well, I'm going to play with the AI, and I have Grok, the free version, and it says animate your images. I'm like, well, that sounds like fun, and I it's incredible, like what it can do. So, um, uh, point out to my daughter says, Mom, if you put someone's face or your video on there, that gives them permission to use anything you upload. And I'm like,
Interesting.
I'm like, okay, so note to anybody out there that wants to play with this. It's fun to do. However, you give them permission to do whatever they want with whatever you've uploaded. And I'm like, well, my face is out there, you know?
So, but you
So,
don't know who you have as an enemy or who's jealous of you, who
oh,
would put
yeah,
something nefarious out there. So I use example of a bank
yeah,
robbery, but there's a lot worse things that
yeah.
they're using
But
as
they could grab,
examples.
my face could be grabbed off my website or, whatever.
Right.
So, anyway, but so I was playing with it, and like said, okay, here's a photo of myself just standing at an event, and I'm like, okay, have me jump up in the air and land in the splits. Hey, look, I can finally do it. Um,
You'll
and
be
it's
flying in no
incredible.
time.
And it, so I'm like, this video is incredible. I should just say, yeah, that was me. Um, but
So
it's like, how do they do it really, and it looked just like I jumped in the air and landed in the splits. Had my didn't had my cat doing something silly, and you've seen some of these. It was fun. Animated some artwork, like
yes.
paintings I'd done, and had the water moving. That was fun. But you know I yeah, I don't know. Maybe there are different versions where you can maintain sovereignty over whatever you upload, maybe some paid versions like that. But on the free version, so you're right. And I've obviously, like you, have seen on Instagram or whatever, famous people, saying or doing things and being with people they're not really with and all that. And within, like you're talking about how fast it's moving, within probably 6 months to 8 months, as this has evolved, I used to believe what I saw and be like, look what this person said. Can you believe it? Now I almost never share something, that's like, oh, that's crazy. And if someone else shares something, I search it, you know,
Yes.
and, and find out that's AI, and I let that person know it's AI. But you'll see all the comments like, yeah, that person's a piece of whatever. Yeah, especially if it's about somebody a leader of a particular country, and they'll share these things, and it's like, I don't think that's real, and I share, hey, that was AI, uh, but it's already gotten out there, and people are sharing it and believing it, and that's the danger, as you're
Yes.
pointing out. People can do what they want.
So I wrote down a few of these. There's Grok, there's Syria,
Mhm.
there's, is it Chat,
Chat
GB,
GPT,
BGT,
yeah.
and so those were the ones. But what is interesting, there's a woman on Facebook and she talks to Sage, which is the Chat GBT, and
Okay.
she'll talk to Sage and ask questions. So people are starting to use these as their sources of information.
Yeah. Hmm.
What point are they going to get manipulated?
And sometimes
Because
it's wrong. It gives you the wrong answer. It makes things up too. Yeah.
and I'm not surprised by that. My neighbor had, I think she had Syria. She's moved now, but she had Syria. And I asked about what level of people are awake in consciousness. And it started talking about you need 8 hours sleep a night. So like it wasn't
Well,
even
thank you.
programmed to be able to take the questions
Yeah.
that we were asking. So it's really
Hmm.
important that we learn all that, right? And the other one is the algorithms. So
Yes.
what's happening is, so if I'm doing horse, like I'm watching, maybe it's on horses or it's on dogs. I used to have a giant schnauzer. So I found a Facebook page with giant schnauzers, and I just love watching these dogs. Like they are just so graceful. So I post a couple of them. Next thing you know, I get all kinds of posts on the dogs. So they're going to give us what we're looking for. And it's
Yeah.
really important that we shake that up because you're going to get streamlined information. So
Mhm.
if you're on politics, you're going to get everything about politics, good and
Yeah.
bad. If you're on, like I said, the Schnauzer website, you're going to get all kinds of dog videos. So it's really important to understand the algorithms, that it's not just your lucky day that, oh, I got another one of these videos, right?
And it's funny. So for example, say I was out on Amazon site searching for a particular product. Then next thing I know, on Facebook, um, supposedly unrelated, I am getting all sorts of ads for that particular product. Also, it's been shown, and this is what I think is really interesting, and I think we've touched on this before, even just not, not talking to somebody about it, not, or, having a conversation for one, and then finding ads pop up. Okay.
Yes.
I saw a video where a man was talking about, and this has happened to me, and I bet it's happened to much, many of our listeners who've gone, that's weird. That he went someplace, he didn't even have his phone with him. He paid for something with, oh, it was Walmart. He went into Walmart, he'd left his phone in the car, went into Walmart, bought something, paid with cash, and got a this is more about surveillance than about programming, but and then after buying this product from Walmart with cash and didn't even carry his phone, he got a thing from Walmart saying, can you rate the product you bought? And he's like, what? And so the point of that was the companies and places using facial
I
recognition.
was just going to say that.
And and so even if you don't think you're being tracked, if you're in a store and they can see what you're doing and market that. So even the just thinking of something, somehow the ads show up on it's like, what is that, like, boo.
So this is interesting. When you look at your phone, sorry, you can see my fingerprints all over it. When you look at
Yeah.
your phone, this is a
Yeah.
scrying mirror. So this is all black magic.
Oh yeah.
The rectangular shape is the false molecule. So when you touch your phone with your fingers, this is just for everybody to know, when you touch your phone and you unlock it, whatever, there's my puppy in the background.
Yeah.
But when you unlock your phone and you're using your hand on it, you are already blending with your AI. It doesn't matter if it's your phone or your tablet, because you're
Yeah.
already blending with your phone with the AI. And I know I've said this before, but sometimes I look at my phone and I say, I love you, I love you, I love you, but you work for me. You don't get to send information to me that I don't ask for.
Interesting.
I've done that with my laptop as well. So my laptop is not, it's not like a tablet where it's a touch screen, but I've
Yeah.
done it with my laptop as well. That I know I've used this example before, but a friend of mine, she had a stroke and she's in a retirement home in a town nearby. And she said, come and visit. And I said, well, what's the home you're in? And she
Oh
goes, I
yeah.
don't remember. I told you this one, right? And then
Yeah.
I said, she said, call my daughter and she'll tell you what home I'm in. And I said, what's her phone number? She goes, I don't remember. So, and I know I've said this before, but I went through and I'm looking at the retirement homes. She's got money, so I knew it was more of a high-end one. I'm looking at the retirement homes in London, and I'm thinking they're going to send me ads for retirement homes. I'm not old enough for that. But I said, don't you dare send me anything, and it didn't. But when I
Oh
was looking for like the barbecue stands, the 5x8 barbecue stands with the canopy to keep you out of the
uh-huh.
rain, I was
Yeah.
looking for a new top for mine, and I was on Amazon looking for it. Well, next thing you know, I was getting ads like crazy for these stands.
Yeah.
And then finally you have to say no. So AI is not, it's going to be here to stay. I don't doubt that. I think it can be used for good or evil. I think we have to start asking for what we want the AI to do for us. So people do not want these CBDCs, the what are those called? Central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
But I think what's going to end up happening, as long as they don't have the control on that. But in Canada, when you contribute to Canada Pension all your life, and you get this measly check per month when it's time to collect your pension, and then you hear the foreigners are getting $3,000-4,000 a month plus
Yeah.
benefits and
So
everything's paid.
frustrating.
It's really frustrating. But my point is, I don't see why we couldn't have independent pension plans. Just like, what do you call a locked-in account in the States? You have 401ks and IRAs. Which one is
Um,
locked in?
yeah, well, there's like a CD, but that's like a timed limit. I don't know much about the other investment formats.
Okay, so one of them would be comparable to an RSP here. One of them would
Okay.
be comparable to a pension that you can roll over, but it
Mhm.
has to stay locked in and you can only take so much out of it. Why don't we have that with all our government pensions? So we contribute so much money into these for how many years to get this measly little handout? And
Yeah.
that's what I think. So we could use the AI for stuff along that line, the CBDCs, providing they're used for good, but each
Right.
person has control over their own. The banks don't get control, the government doesn't get control, the media doesn't get control. You can pay all your bills through that, your internet, your phone, all those kind
Mm.
of things, because now in Canada, they're threatening to shut the internet off if they don't like what you post.
Yeah, and they have and they will, right?
Yes, right.
And
So
look what's happening in the UK. Incredible.
yes,
You know,
40,000 people have been jailed for their posts. Even Russia does. Russia, last I heard, was 30,000 for their posts. Like,
incredible.
it's insane. But a lot of these people are power trippers. So I had somebody come into my door a couple of weeks ago, and I looked out the window, and there's two men on the porch. And I opened the door a crack, and I said, "Get off my porch, and I'll open the door and talk to you." But you're not standing on the other side of the door where you can stick your foot in there. I
I
don't
never
know
know
who they
who is
are.
in. Yeah.
You know what they're coming around doing? Checking to make sure that we changed our batteries for the smoke detectors. I'm like, this is your job?
Right.
Is this where you need to come in and check out my
Human
house?
doesn't just like send out a notice or something.
So, but the
Send
idea that
mail.
they came in, are they going to case your house? I don't know. I'd imagine with all the cameras and what they have that they can see all of this anyways. But I just said, I just dried an iron frying pan on the stove and I forgot it and it started to smoke. My smoke detector went off last week. I just changed the batteries a couple months ago. So even though it was maybe a little longer than that, but my
Were they
point is,
volunteering to do it?
well, they didn't because I said I just did it. But how would you let two men just walk into your house?
Well, well, if they're handsome.
I hear you.
No, one for me, one for you. And no, it's creepy. So I'm just, there's all sorts of things that could have been going on. Are they, if they wanted to come in and do something with your smoke detector for you, are they going to put a listening device or a camera in there for you? Are they going to just, really, are they just there for your benefit to help you change your battery? But that's almost what, or are they going to help convert you to Jesus, Latter-day Saints? What are they really coming door to door for? That's
Right.
pretty weird. That's a lot of money for manpower for that.
Especially for
That's
two of them. And these
and what
men were maybe a little younger than I. So like
and
they're
what
not
you
going to be
talk,
working for minimum wage.
when you talked about in the beginning, the muscle testing, your intuitive hits is like this. Something's not feeling right with this. When it all comes together, this makes no sense logically, but also gut feeling, like you say, is like, hey, no, no,
And you know
that's
what else is interesting? If any government calls you, law enforcement calls you, anything like that, it all says no caller ID, regardless of what department you're working with
is that right in Canada?
in
Really?
Canada. So it doesn't matter if it's Services Canada, if it's the OPP, if it's the regional police, it doesn't matter who it is, but they say
Oh,
no caller ID. So the one gave me hell. He called about something. I'm not going to say what. And and I said, how do I know you're for real? Like, you tell us not to get scammed by these people. And then
mhm.
you have no caller ID. He goes, I'll call you from the police, whatever, the police station. So, anyways, I go online. He told me his name. I go online and I'm dealing with the directory and I punch in his name and it says no such officer exists. So I'm thinking this guy's lying to me. Next thing you know, there's a knock on the door, the doorbell rings, and I look out and there's a cruiser on the street and I can see he's wearing a cop uniform. We've got a costume shop just down the street here.
Yeah, it's so easy.
You could be a Nazi and if you're not used to what these guys wear for their uniforms, how are you going to know
Mhm.
that something is off? So anyways, I opened the door and he made a comment. He goes, I didn't think you were going to open the door. And I said, I just checked your directory and it says you're not real. And then I looked at his name. I'm not going to say his full name, but it was, so I thought it was something G-E-E. It was G-H-E-E. That was the
Okay.
name on his badge. So I realized he didn't spell his name out for me.
Uh-huh.
So my point is, and I said no caller ID. Like, what did you expect me to do? Right. So we have all kinds of scams up here. We have a lot of people trying to say you owe money to Revenue Canada, go to the
Oh
bank and
yeah.
bring the money back, but then you don't know if they're going to break into your house. Like Canada is prime for criminals. Like basically, there's no punishment up here. We're soft on crime, right? So, so what else I was going to say? I've got a book on dowsing, and it's all about how to ask your questions.
Hmm.
So the first three questions are: May I? Can I? Should I? Those are the three that you ask. A lot of times people try to deal with other people's stuff. So they want to go in and douse and fix something. If they haven't given you permission to do it, that's not a may I, can I, should I, because you're crossing somebody's boundaries. But you
Yeah.
can look at what you're watching online. Is this AI? Can I douse on this? Because
Yeah, I
it's
was going
free
to
for
bring
all.
that up. You could totally douse, with
Whether
yes.
pendulum, L
Mhm.
rods, your the sway
Yeah.
test, your fingers, whatever way
Hmm.
that goes, right? And so sometimes when you're online, it's important to look too to see how many followers the other person has. And sometimes they say if they don't have a lot of followers, they're probably not real. This was
Yeah.
probably 2012, 2013. There was a guy who was following me. He was wearing skinny jeans and a paisley shirt, and he's young. And I'm thinking, what would you want with me? I, hang on, it's not personal. You just ask the questions. And I watched his feed go up. He was at 20,000 people in like 24 hours. So then I have to go and look him up, see where I knew where he worked. And he worked for an advertising firm that worked for Stephen Harper, who was the prime minister at the time, Andrea Horath, who was the head of the NDP in Ontario. You think the advertising firms didn't talk to each other?
Yeah,
And they didn't
that's
know what
right.
each of their platforms was going to be. So I just left it for a week and then I just block them, right? That's all I do. Get them to unfollow me. They're not paying attention anymore. But it's really important that we use our own discernment. And I think we're going to see more of this, that as the AI starts to come in and the programming is going to come in, um, I think we're going to see more reason to use your own discernment. And I think
I
that's
hope
going to
so.
be a big lesson for 2026. The problem, as well as with the TV or the computer, people believe what they see. I just had
Yes,
somebody tell me that
still.
Trump's bad, right? And this person's pretty much awake, but he told me Trump is bad. And I just like, you're watching too much news. Don't do that. And he didn't
Yeah.
like it. He had to get off the phone. And I'm like, stop watching the news. That's not true. Right.
And,
I'm not
and
saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he's going to pull everything off he wants to. Who knows? That's not the point. I'm not trying to control it. But my point is, he's not
yeah.
using his discernment. He's believing everything he watches on the TV. And it's like,
And
we got to,
go ahead.
I was going to say, and we know with the TV, they call it television, tell a vision, tell a lie for a reason.
Mhm.
So we all know
And
that that's old news.
yeah. And then, it's programming, television
Totally.
programs. Yeah. Um, but, as you said in the beginning about using discernment, my or just following to follow because it's, you're either this or you're that, and you won't accept or, deny anything else. And so I've kind of come to, for myself, watch and see, right? I
Yes.
might believe something, but I'm like, but maybe I'm wrong in my faith or belief in something. I'm going to watch and see if this plays out the way that, somebody says they're going to do. Are they really doing what they said they were going to do? Are they are they slipping other stuff in there that maybe I don't agree with? And so I'm, watching and waiting with Trump, and I'm like, yeah, he's primarily doing what he said he's going to do. However, I have been seeing some like little stuff slipping in there too that I'm like, wait a minute, that's like the old agenda, like I think a little bit of moving forward with some digital stuff, digital financial stuff that I'm like, I don't know enough about it to make a judgment yet. So I sort of like lean back and I'm getting the popcorn because there are certain things we can't control.
No.
Uh, but we can be discerning and be prepared and stand up to a degree in a safe way for our own values and moral judgments and what we think is right. And obviously there's a lot of disagreement in the world about what people think is right. So it's like, hey,
Totally.
you be you, I be me, I believe in this and you believe in that, and don't don't try to kill me for that. It's
It's interesting. There's a liberal on X, and I just happened to be scrolling through a little bit of it this morning, and he said that far right people, we need to start killing them. We need to know who they are. And you stop and you think, what would give you the right to do that, regardless,
yeah,
right?
because they
Just because your political views.
don't agree. Yeah.
So I try to use sarcasm as much as I can and slip in some sarcasm or get people thinking. I won't tell you the one example I've got. It's a really good one. But she was leaning on the counter by the time I was done with her because she realized the mistakes that she had made in her thinking. But there's the programming again. And I don't care what adults do, but it says, oh, they're all on the spectrum, the LBG spectrum. They're all on the spectrum. I'm like, they're kids. They're not on the spectrum. It's the adults who's got the mental defunct, like dysfunction that are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. And I'm not putting anybody down. I don't care what you do as an adult, as long as you're not pushing it in my face. Right?
Yeah.
But the problem, they're doing it to kids. That's the problem, right? And
Well,
that's
you know what? That just changed in the US.
Yes, I'm proud of you guys.
They just passed the bill that makes it a felony to do any gender changing
Mutilation.
surgery
Yeah.
or mutilation under the age of 18, I guess.
Yeah.
So
and that needed to happen. So Canada's doubling down while you guys are starting to come out of your fog and your funk. Canada's doubling down on this kind of stuff. And I don't know when it's going to change. I'm hoping we're the 51st state. I know a lot of people in Canada that we're almost falsely proud of who we are as Canadians. And it's like, what have we done good in the world? Oh, we went into Normandy in World War II. Okay, and what else have we done?
Yeah.
What else have we done that's great for the world? Right. And this is what I'm not putting Canadians down. I think there's a lot of really good Canadians, but unfortunately, the ones in charge that are making these decisions aren't necessarily the good ones. And what amazes me is how little we know about our own political system. So my understanding is once you're in the Privy Council advises the Prime Minister on different things. So their offices are beside each other down on Wellington Street in Ottawa. Okay. Once you're a Privy Council, my understanding is you can advise any other Prime Minister that comes in. So you never lose your position.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So then you start looking, okay, now this one's the head of the region. This other one is a minister for Mark Carney right now. So you start looking at their positions, but then they all know each other. So you start looking for the common denominators in a lot of this.
Yeah, what they call the swamp down here.
Yes.
It's the what do they call it? Like neocons, I guess, or they have all
I don't follow all the labels. Yeah.
The administration, the or even unelected, people that just stay and stay and stay and stay. They're not elected by the population, and they just, so they are just kind of try to keep things under their same control. And I think that's part of what Trump's, agenda was to switch that up and to get rid of the old pattern.
So it's interesting you're saying that. I was watching Marco Rubio. I think he was at the White House. So Trump was in North Carolina, I think yesterday, but he was talking about that they're not funding the NGOs anymore. So I've done a few videos about what's happening with One Health, and this is the UN Environmental Group, the WHO, and the World Organization for Animal Health. Well, we already know that they've just culled some cattle in France and stuff like that too. Like they're just culling turkeys here, like they're culling all the food supply. But when you start looking at that, and I started going through and breaking all of those 4 organizations down, they're all run by NGOs. So they're not elected people. So we're all sitting here looking at this politician and that politician. They're not the decision makers.
Yeah.
And this is what we haven't figured out. But Marco Rubio just came out and said, we're not funding them anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's a start.
Yeah. Because what happens, you fund this that sounds like a good thing to support and fund. And apparently what's going on is then those monies go to that group to do the bidding of, like we say, these unelected, corporations or people, and money funnels back to support the election of politicians who will keep them,
in place.
that
Yes.
that's it's like this cycle of, you give me, I give give us the money and we'll support you for giving us the money. And kind
And
of,
we'll give you the votes. And
yeah,
that's happening with the public service unions. That's happening up here a lot. So Ford and with Trudeau at the time were promising all the public service unions, like the Canadian Labor Council. Trudeau met with them. Prime Minister hasn't met with them in 50 years. So
yeah,
then Ford comes out and says that they're giving all the public service organizations all the jobs for the contracting. So we have the International Brotherhood for Electrical Workers. So when they're looking at all these buildings going in, they are going to be the ones who get the contracts, which means you've got to be part of their union, which means you got to pay their dues. Like it's just one big spider web is what people are calling it, right?
yeah. It's
And that's what
incredible.
it is. It
And
really
the
is.
more the more you learn, the less you realize you know. It's
Yes.
just like anything. It's like, oh, and ignorance is bliss. And so back to, the main point here is, what program are you following? Is ignorance your bliss? Do you really know what
Right.
you're following, what you're supporting, and why? What's the source of it? For example, um, you know, going back to this Planned Parenthood, for example, I don't know if it's up there in Canada, down here in the US. Planned Parenthood, uh, women's, they'll frame it as women's health, right? But really, it's just easy access to abortions, which obviously can be useful, can be valuable for, in need, or, I'm not going to go into the moral choices on
Yeah.
that. But on the other hand, there are, it was supported with finance, from the government. And I think that's changed now. But you know who started that? Way back, that people don't realize that was started, I forgot her name now, but
Margaret Sanger.
yes, her,
Okay.
who was a racist and saw this as a way to eliminate, or they put it into poor Black neighborhoods primarily to, you know, uh, she was, the beginning of this was not to help women's health.
No.
It was to, like you talk about culling, it was for the white supremacy movement.
So
And
that's
then
going
it's
to change.
something better. I don't know.
So that's going to change. So in Canada, they used to call it Planned Parenthood. Now they've changed it to shore centers. So they just kind of repackage themselves. So
Yeah.
you don't, until you look under the hood, you don't know. But what's happening, so I find it interesting. I'm not getting into the morality of the abortion with you. I agree on that. And I have my own views and it doesn't matter. But what's happening, I think they're selling the baby parts. So we get shown videos in school that show you going in and chopping the baby up. I don't believe that's what they do. I think they bring the baby out whole and sell the fetal parts. That's what I
Mhm.
think they're doing.
I'm
So
sure that's something, going on under, that they're making money on the way in and on the way out.
right,
And all sorts of ways that they can sell the, parts, valuable parts, unfortunately.
right. So, but I
For the,
think the stem cells are pretty intense in the fetus, and I think there's a certain amount of energy, especially through the umbilical cord and the placenta. So I think those are the parts that are being sold off.
yeah,
So I don't know all of it. These are just suspicions that I have. But I just didn't, like, I was grossed out watching those videos in high school and in
yeah.
college. But when I think back on it, I think that's what they're saying. That's to make us think there's no value in it. So we
Hmm.
have MAID in Canada, medical assistance in dying. I think 60,000 people have died already. I love some of your American podcasters. You guys are just slamming Canada. So if Canadians haven't figured out that this is wrong, but what they're doing is that they put you under. They have to harvest the organs when you're alive.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah, that's seen
So that's what they're doing with MAID. So they want
stuff
people
about it.
dying because they want the organs. Now, I don't know why you want adult organs. I don't understand all the different uses of it. But
Oh,
I think,
transplants. Yeah.
and that could very well be right. But I just think major things are going to change, and I think it's going to be the U.S. that changes it. That's the impression that I'm under. Just watching, who is it? Christy Nome and Tulsi
Gabbard.
Gabbard. So she goes and finds all the information, and people are quite pleased with her of all the corruption, but she has to send it to the DOJ or the DOD, Department of Justice or Department of Defense, and they have to issue the indictments or the subpoenas.
Yeah,
So
the
we're going to
DOJ.
see DOJ. So we're going
Yeah.
to see the breakdown in command is what I think is going to happen. So I've been told with all the executive orders that Donald Trump has signed, that the FBI, the CIA, the two departments I just mentioned, they're not following them. So I have a feeling they might be the entry level when we start seeing heads roll. That's my impression that I'm under. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm waiting for some heads to roll,
And
particularly
it's going to
over
be interesting because people are going to be
COVID,
really upset.
all that, the lies and the, yeah, there's stuff that's been shown now, and it's gone through congressional hearings, and hello, I'm really, really tired of people saying, okay, we found this out, this person did such and such, and they were wrong and they were illegal, and then it kind of just disappears. Next thing you know, there's the news cycle turns to whatever, and it's like, wait a minute, whatever happened to all these arrests that were going to be made, and whatever happened to the charges that were going to be filed? And here's where, when you say what we don't know, right? Ignorance is bliss, because what we don't know is what's going on, the handshakes and the behind the scenes thing that keeps people from having accountability for what they've done.
And these people have been put in place for years, the judges.
Yeah.
The like the Secret Service, any of these organizations. So I'm assuming you would have the same in the US. What we have in Canada, all our courthouses, they have metal detectors and police at the entrance that you have to be checked. Why would people want to kill the judges if they're so above board? So then you start realizing that they're even supporting the corruption. And I was in a courthouse one time, and I was with a mother, and they wanted her to go into the courtroom on her own. Well, the court clerk comes out and starts putting brown paper in the windows so you couldn't see.
Oh.
So she knew enough not to go in. But there was two cops standing at the door. Next thing you know, the father comes over with his lawyer and calls the one cop over. So the cop's listening to them, doing their bidding. And I'm like, you don't work for them. And there was a woman standing there, and she had the Leonard on her neck and her ID. She was standing there and just watching all of it. So she worked in the courthouse. So like when you see how corrupt everything is, I don't know what we're going to do about it, or what have you. So something's got to give higher up and stuff like that. But you just sit here, and like I went over to the cop and I said, what are you doing? You're following their direction? Like, you're supposed to be impartial here. And he wanted nothing to do with me. I wasn't rude to him or anything like that, but I just like, what are you doing? Right? So it is so corrupt. And I know Trump said he's going after CPS next, Child Protective Services.
Oh.
So who knows what comes out of it, right? But my point is, something's got to give. Because if this is the hemisphere that we're in charge of, that we live in, and he wants to clean up the hemisphere, because that's his neck of the woods. He's got a lot of work cut out for him. I don't know what he's going to do in Canada. I have not seen one politician in Canada or one person who's like a department head who I think is good. We've got a DEI in the head of the military, a DEI hire.
Still, yeah.
So I can't remember her name. She says, we're ready for war. Somebody else posted a video. There's some really great guys out here who do a lot of research, but they'll show you the government website. So they'll back it with what they call the receipts. We only have 22,500 full-time active military personnel. 22,500, but we're going to win the war. Like, it's just silliness, right? So this is where the discernment comes in. The other thing about, we're talking about programming and somewhat about discernment, is knowing how to calm your stomach down. So you can put your hand above or below your navel. And just say, I love you, I love you, I love you. Even just rubbing it a little bit. I'm just going to maybe tilt this down if I can. But even just rubbing it a little bit, rubbing your sides, I do like brushing off sometimes, brushing off any anxiety I might be feeling. And I know there's all kinds of different techniques to use, but that's one where you don't have to think about it. But
Yeah.
sometimes people hold that tension so tight in their body. That's just not good for you.
And as we're speaking about this too, all the frustrations or, well, when's this going to happen? I can't, in my mind, I'm like, I can't believe this, or I can't believe that. Like when you're just
Right.
buffeted by the nonsense or the unfairness or inequity or anger of what, and for me, obviously I think we've talked about this, but my go-to is um, is that thought shift. It's like, what can I do about it? Is there anything I can do about it? And if I can't, that I need to, like you say, energetically block that stuff from coming into my system. That's
Right.
weird. Our pictures just, oh, I raised my hand by accident.
Okay, I was going to say it's only us. So
It's emotion. I realize now it's a motion thing.
yes.
That gets reading and that's new. That's new. Thanks.
So there's
Zoom.
nothing wrong with emotion. Women tend to be more emotionally aligned than men. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's about balancing both hemispheres of your brain.
Mm.
So we have eminences here. Do you know where those little horns are?
Uh-huh. My
So,
home.
so one of the tapping courses that I took, you're supposed to use your ring finger, I think, because it doesn't have as much pressure, and you're supposed to feel them. So if they're going back and forth, you're not in balance energetically. If one has more pressure than the other, can you feel them? This is good for everybody to do. So don't put too much pressure on it. But what I started to do to balance out both hemispheres of my brain, I would just go center, 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 and I would bring it into my pineal gland,
Mhm.
just center both of them. So I can be highly emotional. Some people call me intense, which like you're not going to figure that out, right? But I can also use an extreme amount of logic, common sense. I can use both. So there's times where you want to be emotional and you want to feel those emotions. Like you want to feel love, you want to feel
Yeah.
compassion, empathy, like there's things you want to feel. But if you shut out the bad feelings, you shut out the good feelings. There's times you might want to do something to somebody. It's not a problem until you act on it, right? Well, we don't know if that's going to change with these thought crimes that they're accusing us of, right?
Oh,
So
good. I
so
know
so
what you're
that's
saying.
right. But that's really interesting when you can sit here and you balance your eminences, and then you
Mm-hmm.
bring your attention to the center where your pineal gland is. And it's just an interesting technique. I don't know. So I learned from them where the eminences are, but they were
Mm-hmm.
saying just to balance the two of them through tapping. I don't. I use it through consciousness energy.
There's all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
And the idea of the balancing, as I was, pointing out, like if something out there is getting in here, and you're right, it's like, okay, feel the feeling, but don't stay in the negative feeling and thought. And
Yeah.
that's the trick. It's like, okay, and then there's that self-awareness is what am I doing to myself because of external events?
Right.
Why do I need to make myself sick or unhappy or focused on the negative external event? And like you say, it's like, okay, let that flow through and now reclaim my peace.
Yes. And
Like you're
there's times things happen that you might need to re-evaluate what you're doing for security. So you live in
Mhm.
an apartment, you probably have a controlled entrance and all that kind of stuff.
I was just thinking about that yesterday as I came home at night. I walked through the gate and I thought, this is nice that once I'm in through the gate in the courtyard, um, you know, unless it's somebody who lives here or who has access, I'm pretty safe. I
Yeah.
come up in the door to the building, need the code. In up the elevator, need the code. Into my locked door, need the code or the key.
Right.
And so I have lots of layers, and that is one thing I appreciate about living in a high rise.
Right. So this
Yeah.
is good that people are paying attention. So if you've got a gate, secure your gate. Find a way. I'm not going to say what to do, but find a way to secure your gate that people just can't open the latch and walk through it. So what they're doing right now in Canada, there's a company called Durafilm. So they put the film on the inside of the glass.
Uh-huh.
So even if you take a hammer to it and you chip the glass, you can't break through that film.
Oh, that's interesting. That's great.
Right. So the only problem, so I went and looked at it, and it says get a free quote, but then it asks for your address and your name and your email. And I'm like, no, 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 that's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
it's
Right. So
fine.
I didn't bother. I'm sure there's a couple
It's
film or
free.
companies that do it, but so protect yourself. And even if you protect yourself, that gives you a sense of calm. So when I'm in a parking lot or whatever, I'm not paranoid, but I watch what's going on around me. And I
Yeah.
remember one time this guy comes up and he goes, "Excuse me, do you have I need gas." And then he turns around and says, "I need $10." And he calls his buddy over. So now there's two of them on me.
Yeah.
You can imagine the language that came out of my mouth, right? And I was
Good for
pretty
you.
loud about it. So then people are
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
So now they know that there's something wrong here. Go find another
Yeah.
parking lot. Right. So there's all kinds of things we can do. And the other one is take breaks. So sometimes I'll be on social media for a bit. There's times if I'm out visiting somebody or what have you, sometimes I'll take my phone in the house with me, but it's in my purse. I don't have my phone on me. Like there's times where you just take total break, just have your visits and entertain yourself with your friends. That's what I find is really helpful as well. Right. So,
Down for a little bit. I've noticed more and more if I send somebody a text or something that it will come back saying notifications are silenced. And I think, I almost never do that. But it's a great way to not ignore somebody, but to say, hey,
my
I'm
time.
not ignoring you, but right now I'm just not. Just
Yes.
not answering. Or the automatic email reply is something you can use for yourself too. Because I know for myself that I feel like I'm on. If my phone beeps or blinks or tweets, I feel like, oh, and I even had a friend today. She sent me something late yesterday afternoon or evening or early evening. And I had a late client. Then I was on the phone directly after that. Then I joined a friend for dinner after that. And I, got home, went to sleep, and woke up this morning and saw uh, texts from her where she was talking about something. And then she says, oh, I can tell that you're not interested. I'm not going to bother you with this anymore. I'm sorry. And I know that when you go quiet on me, that you don't want to hear it. And I went all within one night because I was busy and wasn't looking at my
Yes. That's why
and so
I
I
don't get back to people right away. Sometimes I
no
do, sometimes I don't. And then that
I
way there's no consistency that I'm on my phone all the time.
but if I had put that automated reply notification silenced, she would have known I'm not ignoring her. But it's kind of
Right.
funny how we are so, it's right here. Yours is right there. We're so tethered
Yes.
to this device on purpose by the programmers. And here we are going, woo, my phone, I have to have my phone. You leave the house, you start to shake. It's like withdrawal. Where's my phone? And I think it is healthy for all of us to practice just backing up sometimes.
Yes.
Put on an automated response so you know that whoever is trying to contact you or reach out knows that you're okay, you're not ignoring them, okay? And take a day off maybe,
Yes.
right? Because the temptation is always there to have this uh, device and be in constant contact and or scrolling on Instagram. There's a thing about kids that they're noticing this new problem. They've had videos of like even 3-year-olds having a physical reaction to almost like a withdrawal, like almost like a drug withdrawal, when they've been on their tablets or their devices or these interactive games and toys that if they get taken away, child has like a little
Temper tantrum.
spasm mental breakdown
Yeah. So then
because
you
they are
wonder what frequencies they're sending.
mm-hmm,
So
that
so
also
so we had a lot of MK Ultra, and I think it was called the Allen Memorial Hospital in I think it was in Montreal, but the CIA ran it. And it was you and
mm-hmm.
Cameron who was the physical face of it, but they knew it was all MK Ultra. And when you start looking at this, it's always important to say, are these thoughts my own? Or are they somebody else's?
And they do have devices apparently um, that can implant thoughts. And
Yes.
of course, that's a fun rabbit hole to go down if we start looking at programming again.
Yes.
programming for, some of these lone gunmen that end up dead right away. Or it's
Like, how many times are they going to try to get away with that? And whoever was supposedly shot Charlie Kirk, they're saying that there's a media blackout for him in court. So you stop and you think, you guys
yeah,
are playing the same games every time.
they're not putting it on camera. They're like so many other court cases. They're saying, yeah, this can be open to the public to see the ongoings, and this one they're not.
No. So it's just kind of interesting when we start seeing what's happening. So we're not trying to be depressing here. We're trying to give some tips as well and what people
Yeah.
can do with the programming and ask about it. Because there's times people will say things to you online or even in public, and you're just like you just don't know what to say to them. But it's like they're on autopilot with the
Yeah.
programming, and they're not thinking. And sometimes it's not worth getting into an argument about it. If it's somebody I know and like, I don't get into an argument. I just let it go. If it's depends on my mood, right? Depending on who I'm talking to. But
Yeah.
I try not to be rude. I've been sarcastic a couple times, but I use the sarcasm to really pull them out of their loop. I'm pretty good at it. But so that's what I do that for. But it's really important that we going forward, especially going into Christmas and the holidays. If certain things come up at the dinner table, you might smile and nod and say, pass the potatoes, and just stay, like, just
Or
don't get involved in it and
pass
recognize
the
what the,
effing potatoes.
right? But figure out what the programming is of that person. Like you said with your text messages, oh, I know when you go silent, you don't want to hear it. That's a program. That's an
Mhm.
assumption she's making about you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And I'm glad you brought up the word assumption, because we all are programmed, whether for good or for bad or whatever, but we have our programs based on our experiences with people in the past, based on past relationships, or, just patterns and habits. And I have, you know, one of the problems, and I had a client yesterday and another personal friend, that this same sort of thing came up, where they were having a conversation. Something happened within a relationship, and my client has a new potential relationship, maybe gone out once, and she the the guy had said, hey, are you available next Monday? And she said, yeah. And so, sounds good, lock you in for next Monday. But it's what, 4 days beforehand, and she's like, well, he hasn't sent out details, he hasn't asked, or said specifically, you know where and when or what on Monday. So I just assume that's a cancel. And wow, I'm like, how do you assume that's a cancel?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I was going through just expectations and assumptions that we have, because so and so always, when they made a plan, we always knew what the plan was. Or, in the
Yes.
past, when they didn't confirm or say what the plan was, then they tended to cancel. And they said, oh, oh, whoops, something came up. And I said,
A
so
lot of
here's,
games.
check it out. Check
Yes.
it out. I said, maybe, as you go forward, you can share your expectations by, if he hasn't said something. I said, I suspect if he knows that you're going Monday, that at least by Sunday he'll say, okay, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Here's the time and the place,
Yeah. This is
right?
what you should wear, and
Yeah, what's
questions
the
like that.
outfit, what's the attire? And I said, but if you in your own world prefer to have details sooner, tomorrow, if he hasn't said something, say, hey, looking forward to seeing you Monday, just want to
Exactly.
lock the details, and what should I wear, right? And that way he knows. You want to know 3 or 4 days beforehand, and you can come together. Don't just go to the negative and assume he wants to cancel. I said, but then he can't, if he says, oh, something came up, then black mark, right? He
Right.
should have told you right away without you asking. But it's so funny, or people basing their assumptions that this happened to me in the past, and therefore I'm expecting you're going to do the same thing.
Yes.
So it's like you got to give people the chance to do what, do the wrong thing or do the right thing.
Yes. And
And
give them a chance to be themselves, because maybe they have a new way of doing it that the person you're
yeah,
with before didn't do it.
right. Yeah.
So there could be all kinds of assumptions that could be
Yeah.
made, but
Assumptions.
give them an opportunity. It doesn't matter if it's men or women, but give them an opportunity to come through and do the right thing.
Or there's that old that old joke, when I assume I make an ass out of you and me, right? Bells
Some
and
of those,
some.
yeah,
You know,
cliches
right.
are a little much, but I hear you on
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay to set a boundary too. Like, it's easy to make assumptions, but the flip side of that is set a boundary. And it's exactly what you just said. I prefer to know a couple days in advance.
Yeah. And without, there's that balance. You need to let the other person know what your expectations are, what you'd like,
Right.
and give them a chance. Not
Yeah.
just assume, oh, they did it, so therefore black mark. I'm not giving them a chance.
And there's
Yeah.
an opportunity or a possibility that she doesn't even want a relationship. She's scared, so she's looking to bail. There's all
And
kinds of ways.
she knows that, that she tends toward the negative, and that, not to go into too many details about her, but a lot of it's based on assuming from an old, very toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And so working away from assuming that that's going to happen again.
And she could
So
probably clear her energy of that
mhm.
person's um, connection with her. So you assume if she's in a relationship, it was intimate, but you can clear that energy out,
Yeah, and
right?
I think you're right. And I have not addressed that with her, and I think I will. I think I will next time. Yeah.
Right. So, and that makes a big difference. I'm not
That
going to
makes
say,
sense.
I helped the client clear out some abuse from childhood. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I went right in with a meditation and just cleaned him out. And he just
Mhm.
looked at me, right? He just couldn't believe it. He's married. I told him, give me a hug on the way in, because you're not giving me one on the way out. You take this home to your wife, right? But my point is,
Oh,
there's so many things that we can do to clear out old energies, right? But he was carrying a lot of pain from this one relationship. And it's just like, you don't need to carry this anymore,
yeah,
right?
I've done cord cutting and such, but as far as an energy work with her, I mean, like maybe some Reiki, some, maybe something to actually
I'll,
energetically.
I'll
Um,
go through later when we get off the recording. I'll explain what I did. And you're not
cool.
going to do this with her because you're both females, unless she's gay, like a
Oh, okay.
lesbian. So you're not
Maybe
going
I'll
to end.
maybe I'll turn her and it'll be like, I'll be like, sorry, no, I'm not your type.
So I
No,
tried to do it with one woman and it didn't go over as well,
that's interesting. Well, okay,
right?
I'll
Because she
look
didn't
for.
want me in her energy fields. So I don't know
Yeah.
if it was a bit of competition in there or whatever. This guy, he was highly psychic. Like, he would come in and say, you started working on my file at 9:10 this morning, because that's when I would put his file on the table. And I stopped and I looked at him the one time. That's exactly when I put his file on the table, but he could pick up on that when he hadn't even left for home from
That's
home yet,
um,
right? So he was easy to
very
work with. But there's all kinds of things we can do. But just with the AI and the programming coming in, I think with all of the good that's happening, we're going to see a lot of I'm going to call it the darkness. They're going to start doubling down, and they're going to try all kinds of ways of tricking us. So even on my phone, sometimes I will have a message from somebody, but it'll be my phone carrier that gives me the message. But it's
mm,
a text message. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with it. So you never know if they're messing with your hardware, your software. They've even
oh,
gone into some of my profiles and pulled them, like just block them so I can't access them. They changed my country to the US and changed my phone number, but my email is the same. So there's so many things that people can do, right? So the idea is you got to find ways to be able to change the way you do things and come up with a way to get around some of this stuff, especially if you're set in your ways.
yeah.
Right. So I don't think I have a lot of programs. I could be wrong, but I don't think I have a lot of programs. If anything, I think too much, but that's not necessarily a program. That's just a way of trying to get my head around what's going on.
Yeah, I think what's really important for anybody is to practice that self-awareness, that
Mhm.
self-reflection. Like you say, is this me? Is this my thought? Why am I having this thought? Where did this come from? What's the source of this? Especially if it's a negative thought or beliefs or, habit, negative thought habit. Like, my friend with her, my client with her assumptions, she's also my friend. Or, expecting the worst. Oh,
So
that's
I
what,
will tell you later, like when we're off this
yeah.
call, I'm going to tell you what I did, but you probably wouldn't take it to that extent. So if
Mm,
she's female, you might just need to go into her heart chakra, maybe her
okay.
solar plexus,
Mhm.
You can go into the sacral chakra because it's just below the navel,
I
but you
think,
wouldn't go further than that.
okay,
So I'll just go through and explain what I
yeah,
did. But is there anything you want to add in closing? We've been talking for a bit now.
I know we can go on, don't we?
I
Um,
know.
which is good, which is
Yes.
good. It's always good talking with you and
Yes,
sharing
you too.
ideas. And hopefully with the audience that help them reflect and think. And so I would just end with, my last thought is practice self-awareness.
Yes.
Stop yourself. Just stop yourself. When you start to go negative, when you start to make an assumption, when you start to, you know, think like, wait, stop. And is this true? Like you say, is it real? Is this here in my gut or is this here in my head? Where's it coming from? But also, when you do that, allow yourself to accept your intuition. And
Yes.
I'm very much just like I think you are into reading your body, get more familiar with your body. And like are you feeling kind of a funny feeling in your head? Is it in your gut? Is it tingly? And start to identify. And I did a program on this. I don't even think it's up anywhere, but maybe I'll put it back out there. But to recognize your physical sensations and start to teach yourself what physical sensation do I get when
Yes.
something is true? What physical sensation do I get when something's not true? Because, like you say, your body knows, your subconscious knows, because your higher self knows, and it feeds that information in.
Yes.
So, when people say they got a gut feeling, that's a real thing.
Yes.
And
And
trust,
that's a reason for that because it could save your life someday.
yes.
So it
Like
doesn't
when you
matter.
cross the street, when you see somebody and you're like, ooh, or you're like, that person could look exactly the same. They could be scary and weird on a dark street. But I've had it happen where I cross the street because long before I get the message.
Yes.
Get out, get away. And other times I have none of that. And simply there's no, it simply one time it was somebody who came to help me in a situation on a dark street, in a alone on the street, and he was a scary looking MF drinking booze out of a bag. Okay, but my body said no, this is good. My guardian said this is good, and he came to help me with something when my car was broken down in a deserted street downtown, worst part of the city, San Diego. I might have shared this with you before. Um, and he was really more of a guardian angel uh, to protecting me from a circumstance, a situation. And but any other place I would have gone, oh no, this is
Right.
not the right kind of person to be around. But no, he was
But
you
use
know,
your intuition, as you said, right? Which is really good. The other one is going back to discernment.
mm-hmm.
Let go of any expectation or preconceived notions when you're trying to understand the discernment and whether it's programming, whether it's AI or it's not. So a couple of years ago, they had the AI where somebody would be standing there, maybe a couple of their fingers would be missing. So they're getting really good at the AI.
Yes, I
So
remember that.
like
Like,
just little things like that, or a foot was missing, or so who was that? Fall of the Cabal. They were showing the people coming up through
yeah,
the southern border,
that
and
was
one of
really
them, one of the feet was missing. And so the
oh,
two women that did those videos, she would spot that. I'm not saying there's not a lot of people who didn't come across, but it doesn't mean every picture you saw was real, right?
and she may not have created it, but just found it and used it.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
saying. I think she found it and used it. That's what I think she did. But what I'm saying is they're not making the same mistakes with AI anymore.
yeah.
So
Also,
that's
military, or not military, but law enforcement badges. That's one to look for if you're watching something where somebody's getting arrested, or they say it's a cop and all that. The AI is, I guess, not allowed to actually replicate a real law enforcement badge. So
really,
the lettering or the state will be weird or blurred out, or the lettering will be wrong. Like a lot of times it'll be in Russian when supposedly it's a,
yeah,
US cop or something. So that's another one I heard that, to zoom in on that and you'd see, oh, that's not a real, uh, officer.
right. So there's all kinds of things that we're going to start watching for. So I think they're going to ramp it up and they're going to change a lot of it. But I think they're going to try to panic people.
Oh,
And so who knows?
always.
So this is why we want to monitor the programming. But anyways, it's always good seeing you. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you probably in the new year. I hope you enjoy time with family and friends. And whatever happens, just let it go if you can,
Just
right?
let it
So
go.
just let
Let
it
it
go,
go. Let it
right?
go.
So I'm going to post this up on BitChute and probably on YouTube as well. So I don't know if you want a copy of this or not, but I think this is a great message going into the holidays. I really
Yeah,
do. So
it's
take care,
fantastic.
everybody. Enjoy your holidays.
Bye, Merry Christmas.